Let me ask you something simple. Why do some days throw you off before anything happens? You wake up, nothing's gone wrong, and yet your whole system feels like it's bracing for impact. If that's familiar, there's a reason for it. And once you understand that reason, you can change how your day unfolds entirely. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what that pattern is, why it occurs so quickly, and how to change it in real time starting today. When I look back over my own life, the moments where I felt truly overwhelmed were never actually caused by the events themselves. They were caused by the way my system responded. The world would throw something unexpected at me, and without even realizing it, my breath would shorten, my chest would tighten, and my attention would scatter like birds. It wasn't the event, it was the disconnection from my own rhythm. And I've noticed the same thing in almost everyone I talk to about this. Most people wake up and immediately fall into that noise. And it's not because they're weak, and it's not because they're unprepared, but because the world is broadcasting at full volume and we've never been taught how to hold our own frequency inside that. And here's the part people miss. Your overwhelm isn't random, it has a pattern. It repeats because your system is trying to get your attention. Once you start seeing the pattern, the whole thing feels different. So let me ask you the first real question here. What if the overwhelm you feel isn't a personal failing, but a pattern you haven't learned to read yet? If that were true, would you see your bad days differently? Think about the last time you got thrown off center. Maybe it was something someone said. Maybe it was being rushed. Maybe it was an unexpected responsibility. And when you look closely, you'll notice it feels familiar, almost like deja vu. And that's because it is. The body keeps repeating what it hasn't resolved. It's the same emotional geometry resurfacing in slightly different clothing. And that's where the idea of fractal patterns becomes incredibly grounding. See, a fractal isn't some complicated spiritual metaphor, it's just nature showing us that certain shapes repeat until the underlying structure changes. Your emotional life does the same thing. The same tension in your chest, the same pressure behind your eyes, the same sense of being pulled instead of led. It's not random, it's a fractal. And once you recognize it, you stop blaming yourself and start understanding what your system is trying to do. And here's where it gets interesting. If your reactions follow a pattern, then coherence isn't something you have to create. It's something that you go back to or return to. Something I didn't understand for years is that your heart isn't just an emotional center. It's a literal communication system. Your heart sends signals to your brain, and it's not the other way around. And those signals influence everything: your mood, clarity, decisions, and even the sense of connection. The field around your heart, and yes, it's measurable, carries information about your internal state long before the mind interprets anything. So this is why you can walk into a room and instantly feel the emotional atmosphere. Your heart responds before you have a single conscious thought. It explains why certain people soothe you and others drain you. It explains why one disagreement can feel like a physical blow, while another just rolls right off. Your heart is constantly reading your world and adjusting your internal rhythm. So, if your heart is sending out that rhythm every second of the day, what rhythm are you truly living in? Because once you realize that, you actually gain a kind of leverage over your emotional state that most people never realize is available. One of the biggest misunderstandings people carry is the idea that their nervous system is working against them. That tightness, that jumpiness, that overwhelm, it's not sabotage. It's your system trying to regulate itself without the right information. Your body isn't reacting to life, it's reacting to your interpretation of life. And that interpretation is shaped by the field around your heart. When something feels wrong, your system is actually trying to restore balance. The tightening is a signal. The racing thoughts are a signal. The irritability, it's a signal. The shutdown is a signal. All of it is your body saying, we've drifted from our rhythm. Can we please come back? What most people call anxiety is often just the nervous system's attempt to find coherence without enough space to actually do it. And here's the surprising part. You don't fix this with your mind, you fix it with rhythm. If you've ever been blindsided by an emotional reaction that felt way bigger than the situation deserved, that wasn't overreaction. That was an old pattern resurfacing through a familiar opening. Emotional fractals are just repeating structures, echoes of the past moments that haven't fully integrated. When you get triggered, your body isn't reacting to the present, It's reacting to the past disguised as the present. And once you realize that your reactions are part of the pattern, not your identity, it becomes possible to work with them instead of being overwhelmed by them. And your system isn't asking you to analyze the past. It's asking you to choose a different rhythm in the moment. Now, if the same emotional pattern keeps showing up, what happens when you finally see it as a pattern instead of a personal flaw? Everything softens. You begin to return faster. There's a misconception that coherence means always staying calm. That's not how people operate. Even the most centered individuals get thrown off. Coherence isn't about maintaining a perfect emotional state. It's about how quickly you can return to yourself. When you practice returning, even in small ways, your nervous system begins to trust you again. The gap between I've drifted and I'm back becomes shorter. At first, it can feel like an eternity. And with practice, we can reduce that to hours and then minutes and eventually seconds. The end goal is that it becomes instinctive, that return becomes your anchor, it becomes your stability, which means you don't need to fear chaos anymore. Because if you can return quickly, chaos loses its authority over your life. And here's where everything comes together. Once you start noticing your patterns, you begin to recognize the early signs before they take control. Maybe you feel your breath tighten slightly. Maybe your shoulders lift. Maybe your mind jumps a couple of steps ahead. These moments are opportunities, not problems. When you identify the pattern early, you respond rather than react. You move from being carried by the current to steering it. And this is where coherence becomes daily life rather than something you occasionally touch. Daily fractal flow isn't a big ceremony. It's the consistent habit of noticing when you've drifted and coming back gently. It's the understanding that coherence isn't something you earn or maintain. It's something you return to again and again. The more often you return, the easier life becomes. Not because the world changes, but because your relationship with it does. And here's the final question worth asking. What if your heart already knows the way back every single time? And all you're really learning here is how to listen. Let me give you something simple that you can use today. You don't need a meditation cushion or dim lighting or some special ritual. This is something you can do standing in your kitchen, sitting in your car before you walk into a meeting, or even while you're out in public trying to hold yourself together. It works because your system is already built for it. The 15-second return. It's as simple as place your attention gently in the center of your chest. Not fixing anything, just reconnect with that part of you that feels like home. Take one slow breath in through your nose, not a deep breath, just a very present one. Feel your chest expand. Even the smallest amount counts. That's your rhythm starting to show itself again. As you exhale, notice one place in your body that softens. There's always at least one. Repeat once more. Let your breath drop into its natural place. That's it. 2 breaths, and your nervous system receives the message that your rhythm is still here. Steady, available, and waiting for you to come back to it. See, most people think coherence is something that just arrives when life becomes easy. It doesn't. Coherence is a choice you make, often in the very moments where it would feel easier to collapse or react. It does take discipline because you have to be aware enough to notice when you're drifting and honest enough to choose a different response. There's no savior waiting to step in and regulate your life for you. You're the one who makes the shift. You're the one who decides how deeply you want to live in your own rhythm. That discipline isn't harsh, and it isn't about forcing yourself into perfection. It's simply the willingness to meet yourself honestly, breath by breath, and break whatever patterns no longer serve you. Coherence grows because you practice it, because you show up for the return even when it would be easier not to. Let me close with something I wish someone had told me years ago. Coherence isn't the state you reach after you've fixed everything in your life. It's the state that lets you walk through an imperfect life without losing yourself. You're not chasing calm. You're building a relationship with yourself that stays intact no matter what's happening around you. And when you start practicing this gentle return, even for 15 seconds at a time, you begin to notice something subtle but powerful. Life stops feeling like something you have to brace against. The chaos doesn't disappear, but it stops defining you. You start moving differently, you speak more clearly, you breathe without forcing it, and people around you feel that shift, even if they can't explain why. Little by little, your world reorganizes itself around a more coherent version of you. And that's the part most people never understand. Your coherence changes the field around you, not with effort, not with performance, just by being who you are when you're actually connected to yourself. So, if today is the first time you've ever felt even a small pullback into your own rhythm, hold on to that, grow it, nurture it, let it become familiar. You don't have to master this overnight. You're not trying to be perfect. You're learning how to come home. And the truth is, you've never forgotten how. You just stopped listening for a while. If this opens something in you, I'm grateful you were here for it. And when you're ready, we'll go further. Thank you.